All right, all right. Good afternoon. How's everybody? This is the BFTAA and More Show with your host, Louis George Walker, coming at you live in Kansas City today. Yes, it's a nice day out, sun shining, the rain has kind of moved off, and we're glad that you're here. Welcome to Black Family Technology Awareness Association and WEB Du Bois Learning Center partnership to form this show called the BFTAA and More Show. It's brought to you on the KUAW radio station, which is housed in the WEB Du Bois Learning Center, 4510 East Linwood Boulevard in Kansas City, Missouri. So we're glad that you could join us today and glad that you're here. We got a few things to talk about. I know everybody's talking about some of the stuff that's going on in the news, and we're going to go over a little bit of it here. We've had some protests right here in Kansas City, and there's some all over the world, so we can't ignore the voice of the people and the voice of those unheard. So we will talk a little bit about that. We don't have any guests in from the demonstration in Kansas City today, but we hopefully on some of our other shows this week or by next Monday to have some firsthand accounts of what's been going on with the protests that have been happening in Kansas City over George Floyd's death. But as usual, you're here. We want to start this show off with for the audio side people, and for the rest of you guys, you can listen in on, is the theme that we have. We usually like to bring you that, so we'll get our recording going. And we're going to start this off with a little bit of the art of invention. All right. Yes, we're here. We're here. And we talk about the inventions that were made by African Americans throughout times. And we talk about the news that's going on and talk about the education. I want to say a big congratulations to all of the graduates, those that didn't get to walk across the stage this year, but you're still a graduate. You still have that. Don't let anybody take that from you. Education is a key, and you want to be sure and use it. So those of you that are getting ready to head off to college, those of you that have graduated from college, we want to say congratulations, our hats off to you, and hope that the world is just waiting for you to come out here and help solve some of the problems that we have and make your mark here today. So congratulations to everyone that is a graduate. Now, one thing we do here at the BFTAA and More Show every week is we like to talk about what's going on at NASA. NASA had a big week. If some of you didn't see, they tried to launch, I think it was Thursday, and they couldn't get it up. It was either Wednesday or Thursday. They couldn't get the rocket off the ground. But Saturday they were successful. So the first time in, I think they said over 10 years, that we've launched Americans from the United States soil to go into outer space in the Dragon capsule. It was the first time that a private company has carried out the launching of astronauts into space. So those are a couple of big milestones. So we want to see what's going on at NASA this week. I got a feeling that's what they're going to be talking about. So stay tuned to what's going on at NASA.
Preparing to launch America, a cargo spacecraft arrives at the space station, and the detective capabilities of our next Mars rover. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA.
And we're back live in the room now with Bob Behnken on the left of your screen, Doug Hurley to the right.
On May 27th, NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley got suited up for the much-anticipated SpaceX Demo 2 test flight to the International Space Station at our Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
They've each made this journey twice before for the space shuttle missions, but they've never done this in a SpaceX spacesuit. They've never done this together, and they've never done this on their way to head to a commercially built rocket and spacecraft to head to space.
In addition to launching America into a new era of space exploration, the mission is the first to launch American astronauts on an American spacecraft from the U.S. since the end of the Space Shuttle program. Demo 2 is also the final test flight to validate SpaceX's crew transportation system and operational capabilities as part of our Commercial Crew program. All systems on this day were go, except the one none of us can do anything about: the weather.
In Dragon SpaceX, unfortunately, we are not going to launch today. You are go for 5.100 launch scrub.
5.100, it was a good effort by the teams, and we understand, and we'll meet you there.
So with the crew's safety of paramount importance, the decision was made to reset and look to the next launch opportunity that weather permits.
Today was a good day for NASA. It was a good day for SpaceX, and we've got a lot to look forward to.
The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency's unpiloted HTV-9 supply spacecraft arrived at the International Space Station on May 25th. The spacecraft delivered more than 4 tons of science experiments, technology, and other cargo for the crew aboard the orbital outpost. With no shortage of mysteries on Mars, our Perseverance rover will be able to get its sleuth on by using an onboard instrument called Sherlock, in tandem with a camera called, what else, Watson, to study rock surfaces for the presence of certain minerals and organic molecules, which are the carbon-based building blocks of life on Earth. The launch window for the mission is from July 17th through August 11th. Perseverance is scheduled to land on Mars February 18th, 2021. Data from our Mars-orbiting MAVEN mission have led to the creation of the first map of the electric current systems in the Martian atmosphere. Researchers hope to better understand these electric currents and their role in the atmospheric loss that transformed Mars from a world that could have supported life in the past into one that is now more like an inhospitable desert. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/twan.
Yeah, let me get the mic on there. I can tell you that. That's what's going on at NASA. There's a lot of exciting things happening in the world of space. So for some of you graduates, if you want to look at a good career, you might look at getting into engineering or something, working with rockets, spaceships, mechanical engineering, electrical, computer science. Any of those good ones be good to be involved with. We definitely want to salute the astronauts that went up, and I hope that they have a safe landing back. Now, as we continue on with what we've got, for those of you who happen to turn on your television or your radio this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, you probably couldn't help but see some of the coverage of the protests that were going on in Kansas City Saturday. I won't say that it was a riot, but they definitely had a disturbance out at the Country Club Plaza as people broke some windows. They were protesting the killing of George Floyd up in Minneapolis, but the protest started early in the day and it was peaceful. But as it got dark, then some people got a little more rowdier, and there was confrontations with the police, some damage, some looting. Definitely some damage to buildings. I don't think it was a lot of looting, but there was some damage to store windows and the like. Also on Sunday, the police put a cordon around. They protected the plaza. They had a curfew in. The plaza was closed, which for those of you that aren't in Kansas City, it's a big outdoor shopping area, probably about 4 or 5 square blocks of shopping that's outdoors. A lot of shops there right along Brush Creek. And they closed the area off. All the stores were closed, but they still had protesters Sunday evening. And the news was showing that there were bottles and rocks in a big trash can or one of those dumpsters rolled down, and then the police were shooting tear gas and all that. So there was a large concentration of people. They said over 1,000. It wasn't super huge, but there was a lot of people there. No one was seriously injured. They made a few arrests, so thank goodness there wasn't any loss of life. And then later Sunday evening, around midnight, a lady got shot. And then when the police responded, they said they heard some more shots. They don't know if they were shooting at the police or not. No police got hit, but there was some shooting that went on up there. And that was something that we didn't want to see happen that did happen. So we hope that the cooler heads prevail. We hate to see this get into more than just protesting. I think we should have the protests. I want to say the people that are protesting definitely have a right to protest what's going on, because we as African Americans definitely need to say that this is a time to stop the violence on African Americans. Yes, we have problems in our own community. Yes, there's shootings and there are robberies. But to be killed by those that are sworn to protect you and those that have the power over you is a whole different thing. Death is death, but we do have to look at the fact that when you have someone that is sworn to uphold the law and to protect the citizens, to be committing the crimes of third-degree murder, and some would even say second or first-degree murder, then that's a whole different level, because that's coming from a trusted source or someone that actually has the power to do these things and to a lot of times get away with it. You know, they want to do an investigation now. Already they're trying to dig into George's past to see if something, you know, they're getting ready to try and make him not as much a victim as some kind of a criminal or perpetrator, which is the standard MO in a lot of cases like this when the police have been involved in a shooting, is that they start looking at, there's already a contradiction. I was looking at an article today by Megan Flynn and Letitia Beacom, John Wagner, Kim Bellwares. They're talking about this, but it says the family's independent autopsy concludes that asphyxia caused George Floyd's death. So that means that he suffocated or he couldn't breathe. He asphyxiated. Independent autopsy commissioned by George Floyd's family determined the cause of his death as asphyxiation from sustained pressure. He couldn't breathe, as he was saying. Attorneys for the family announced this Monday. No underlying medical conditions caused or contributed to Floyd's death, medical examiner Michael Baden said at a news conference. He said Floyd did not respond to CPR or cardiac shock in the ambulance that transported him to the hospital. The manner of death was homicide, the independent autopsy concluded. The findings differed from the result of the preliminary autopsy from the Hennepin County medical examiner, which found no evidence of traumatic asphyxia, deprivation of oxygen, or strangulation. So the county the county examiner up there, just surprisingly, didn't find that he suffered any traumatic asphyxia, that he didn't have any trouble breathing or anything like that at all. So it didn't play any. So it says that Mr. Floyd, concluded that Floyd's death was caused by the combined effects of Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and any potential intoxicants in his system. So they're saying any potential. They're not even saying that they were, but maybe he was intoxicated, and that he had underlying health conditions. He had high blood pressure or diabetes, and they had him handcuffed. That's what killed him. The knee to the neck had nothing to do with it, you know. So that's the county examiner, and that's the thing though. Now, as you go to court, because they're going to say, well, one examiner said it didn't have nothing to do with it, and the other one said it did, and the jury might say, well, you know, the police, they're trying to do their best, and it's easy for them to say, well, we don't think it was, you know, intentional or that had anything to do with it. We'll go with that other examiner. So they're already starting to lay groundwork to say that he didn't die from the knee to his neck for 8 minutes, and when he passed out in a couple of minutes when it was on there after he was unconscious, or from him saying that he could not breathe. That ain't what killed him, according to the preliminary autopsy from the Hennepin County Medical Examiner. Benjamin Crump, an attorney for the Floyd, said at a news conference that Floyd died outside the corner stores. The officer killed him based on a knee to his neck for almost 9 minutes and 2 knees on his back, compressing his lungs, Crump said. The ambulance was his hearse. Co-counsel for the family, Antonio Romanowski, added that the weight of the other officers, Thomas Lane and J.A. Kuhn, prevented blood from flowing into his brain and air from entering his lungs. Crump said Floyd's family wants Chauvin's murder charge to be upgraded to first-degree offense and the other 2 officers to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Essentially, George died because he needed a breath, Crump said. So, you know, those are the things that are happening, and we'll have to watch it, but they wonder why people are in the streets, why people are upset. But how many times have we seen this, and nobody is held accountable for a death or for a beating or for using excessive force? We don't want to have this happen, and I think that as a community, and not just as the young people out there that are protesting, but as a community, we all should establish or notify our elected officials of our displeasure in this, and that we stand with the people of Minneapolis, that we too do not appreciate. There should be a city ordinance that comes up to say that we condemn these type of tactics and to celebrate George Floyd's life, whatever he had done. He hadn't done, and they say for passing a $20 counterfeit bill is what they're saying. And who knows if he knew that it was a counterfeit bill. You know, we don't know that. If you want to talk about investigations and stuff, my wife found a counterfeit $20 bill that she had got in money returned to her from the bank when she had cashed a check. And she took it back, and they gave her another bill. So, you know, you could be walking around with a counterfeit bill in your pocket and don't know it. You know, it doesn't mean that you're a criminal. You know, you were not even aware of it. So if you went to the store to spend it and they called the police on you or what have you, you know, you're totally innocent of trying to do anything wrong. Yeah, it may have been against the law to spend it, but you didn't even know you had it. And that could be an innocent person that then falls into a situation where he ends up dead. So you know, there's a lot of investigation that needs to go on. There's a lot that we need to know. And even if it was, and even if he was doing a counterfeit bill, that does not give you the right to be his executioner. So, you know, we stand with George Floyd's family, and we support them holding these investigations and trying to get to the bottom of it and to find justice for George. And he's getting support from around the world. Over in England and in Ireland, the Black Lives Matter chapters over there were staging protests. They marched in solidarity, knowing that this does not just affect an African American in the United States, but it's part of all of our families. And we have people of good conscience that are white, that are, you know, Mexicans, Chinese, whoever, that are still protesting this too, that see this injustice. So it's not just African Americans that are joining in the protests. These protests are being held all over the world in support of George Floyd's family, and that this isn't right. And that it's not just George Floyd. It's like, it hadn't been but a few weeks earlier before we watched the video again on television of a African American being chased down and shot in the street over, supposedly we thought he may have been a burglar or he was doing something, but he's jogging down the street, and then somebody takes it into their hands, and not only are they going to arrest him, but they're going to use deadly force on him, and then want to say it's his fault because he shouldn't have been fighting. That somebody pulls a gun on you and that you're supposed to just let them kill you, because if you try to fight them back and they kill you, then they get off because they say you attacked them and you had no gun and you were minding your own business. So those are things that we have to look at. It's something that's going on in this country that we really have to take into consideration of what's happening. Really have to take it into consideration. We have to be in prayer, and we have to take action. God is always in control, and at the same time, we do have to take action when we see a wrong, someone that's being done wrong. Then it is our duty to help them out, And this family now is suffering, and they need our assistance. They need our support. And that's the thing going on. Now, all the riots that are going on out in the streets, all the businesses that are being vandalized or charged, I don't agree with it. I can't say I would do it, but I can't say that I totally don't understand the anger, because I do. I heard a quote they said today that they were talking to Martin Luther King, and one of his quotes about the riots that were going on in 65, 67, he said that riots are the voice of those unheard. And there's a lot of people in the community that feel their thoughts, their identity, what they're about is not being heard. They have grievances. They feel that they've been done wrong, and they're not being heard. And we've got to listen to those voices. We've got to listen to those that don't have the opportunities, that don't have sometimes the wherewithal, not the wherewithal, but we live in conditions in some cities. There are places where people aren't getting proper nutrition. They don't have some of the same advantages to move up, and they get hopeless, and things happen. Now, you can believe it or not, but I was reading is even they talked about when they investigated after the riots in the early 60s, and they had the report that came back, and it said that, the riots were caused, a lot of them, by this systemic racism, that America was becoming two different Americas, one white and one black, one definitely unequal. That was happening in the 60s. This is not new. And the divide now seems to be growing even more, that we are still two separate nations, and that the inequality of a certain group, and not just African Americans, but the lower class, the poor, those that are homeless and stuff, that is getting to be a bigger and bigger group. And if it continues on that route, yes, there's going to be grievances. Yes, there's going to be trouble. Yes, there's going to be problems. I mean, if you want to holler back at me, you can. Let me see. I'm going to pull up my Facebook. If you've got any questions or anything that you want to say, let's see if I've got this up. I think we're going out. It's hard to do this and talk on the radio at the same time, but I'm going to see what I can pull up about the cause. And you can also give us a call. If you want to talk, you can give me a call on the phone, 816-599-6893. That's area code 816-599-6893. This is your host, George Walker, on the BFTAA and More show. We're broadcasting on KUAW-LPFM 98.5 on Facebook. We're at KUAW_radio on YouTube. And you can also pick us up on Periscope at KUAW Radio. So, we'd be glad to chat with you and see. I'm trying to get the Facebook up now, see if I can find the live to see if anybody's posting anything. I don't see anybody yet. I see that it says I got a live. Now I got to find it. I tell you, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose here. But yeah, I'd like to know what your opinions are and what your thoughts are about what's going on in the city. It never takes me this long to find a live video before. And now all of a sudden, it's not visible. Let's see. It says I'm live, but now I got to find the live broadcast. Okay, this looks like it. Tracy Gunn is on there. Something went wrong. We're having trouble playing this video. Well, great. What's going on here? Let me see if I'm still sending out. Yeah, it says. Oh, no, it doesn't. I've locked up. Okay, what's happening with my video? We're streaming here. Rick is in the room, and that's probably causing things to stop. Haven't had that problem before, but now all of a sudden, ever since we ran the NASA bit. So those of you listening on the audio side, you're still getting us, but for those on the Facebook side, it looks like we're having a technical difficulty with our live broadcast. I'm going to have to see if I can restart this. So let's see. I will take that one off. Put it back on. Yeah, it shows that we're sending out and everything's good. But I don't see us on here. People are reacting to it. Okay. Looks like we're back live again. Maybe. Okay, yeah, we're glad. Okay, yeah, it says I'm live now. Been live all this time, and all of a sudden I'm live now. But, okay, so those of you that haven't heard most of what I was talking about since the NASA thing, we had been talking about George Floyd and the protesters. We also want to mention that the president, from his bunker in the basement of the White House, has been issuing out different things. One, wanting to post blame on a group called Antifa right now, said that he's going to label it a terrorist group, that they're behind this nationwide and maybe international protests that are going on. It's a group that nobody had heard too much before, and now they're all over the place. But yeah, it looks like I'm going out live now, so I do appreciate everybody that's coming up. If you want to call in and talk about George Floyd's death, if you want to talk about the protests that went on in Kansas City, give us a call at 816-599-6893, 816-599-6893. That's one thing that we do want to talk to you about. You can also post it now on my Facebook page because the live is working, so we are going out, so you can post on that. I think we had some technical problem with it that happened right after we came back from showing NASA. So we're back on live now. But yeah, Donald Trump says Antifa is to be labeled terrorists, and the military will not intervene in George Floyd's protest. Trump administration says it will not invoke federal authority over the National Guard for now, as angry protesters riot in cities across the United States. The National Guard said 5,000 soldiers are deployed in 15 states and Washington, D.C. Mr. Trump said he believed Antifa were the driving force behind the riots. Antifa groups resist far-right movements such as neo-Nazis and white supremacists. U.S. President Donald Trump also announced that Antifa, an umbrella term for loosely defined far-left groups, short for anti-fascist, as a terrorist organization. Mr. Trump earlier said states and cities must get much tougher on anti-police protests in the wake of the death in custody of the unarmed black man George Floyd, or the federal government would step in, including by using the military and making arrests. Now that sounds really ominous. That was our president speaking. We're not going to federalize the Guard at this time, said National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien. But if necessary, we have further military assets that can be deployed. If the governors and the mayors need it and they can't get control of the situation, we'll do whatever the governors or mayors need to keep control of their cities. The National Guard said in a statement that 5,000 of its soldiers and airmen had been activated in 15 states and Washington, D.C., but that the state and local enforcement agencies remain responsible for security. So they're stepping up to say that they will control this situation, or they're going to try and gain control of it. This comes as CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Collins tweeted that White House staff were advised to avoid coming to the White House complex today, if at all possible, due to the evolving security situation. So yeah, they're taking it seriously, that's for sure. But there were a lot of curfews. This has probably been the more disruption going on in the United States since back in the 60s, 69 or 68 or 69. But, you know, it's one of the things that is just, you know, from the situation that's been happening, you just, you know it's going to happen at some point. It says things went on in a lot of cities, and in some cases, you know, we still have to watch out. The police and the military can get out of control. You know, they can get out of control just as much as the people that are doing the rioting and stuff. Civil unrest has swelled in recent days following Monday's death of George Floyd, who was shown in a video gasping for breath as a white Minneapolis policeman knelt on his neck. And it says, as demonstrators broke windows and started fires, police fired rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse crowds in many cities. In some cases, nonviolent bystanders and members of the media were targeted. In one video from Minneapolis, a National Guard Humvee rolls down a residential street, followed by what appears to be police officers wearing tactical gear. One officer orders residents to go inside, then yells, "Light 'em up," before shooting projectiles at the residents on their front porch. The city's curfew allows people to be outside on their private property. So, you know, despite the fact that they had the right, even under the curfew, to be outside on their porches on private property, they were fired upon by the police. You know, this is what we need to check out and see if we can find that video on that. But you know, these are people that, for whatever reason, they're at home, they're on their porch. If somebody comes down, all the police and all the technical gear, you're going to go out to see what's going on, you know, and then to be shot at is, you know, I don't know, it defies understanding. It says in New York City, police arrested 350 people overnight, and 30 officers suffered minor injuries. Mayor Bill de Blasio said police conduct was being investigated, including widely shared videos showing a police sports utility vehicle in Brooklyn lurching forward into a crowd of protesters who were pelting the car with debris. So, you know, it's a lot of things going on out there, and it's a very volatile situation. And some people think that there are a lot of groups that would like to see or take advantage of a situation like this. I know there's anarchists that would like to see trouble, and there's white supremacists that would like to see more fighting going on, because that would give them the opportunity to get out and to create more mayhem. So agent provocateurs from the government can't be discounted, you know, because the government can spur these type of things on. It's been done in the past. If you know about the COINTEL program of the FBI, is that they can put agents into organizations to help cause problems at demonstrations. So there are a lot of organizations that can use this type of problem going on or unrest to their advantage on the left, on the right, and from the government. So we don't know what all is being done behind the scenes and in back alleys that may be leading to even more of this. You know, we don't know who all the protesters are. We don't know who is causing trouble. And that's something that may come out, and it may be years from now before we find out about it. I mean, it was the Freedom of Information Act that brought some of the things that the FBI were doing to light to get at other organizations. So, you know, we have to look at that our government doesn't have totally clean hands when it comes to dealing with protests, dealing with protest organizations. And it's something that, you know, we just all have to be very vigilant about. Things can go totally crazy and beyond our control in little or no time. But like I say, if you want to talk about this, what's going on, and if you have anything that you would like to share about the demonstration, I'd like to hear from anybody that was at the demonstrations on the plaza or anywhere else in Kansas City or Topeka, wherever you may be. I would like to hear from you if you would like to tell us about what went on, what it was like firsthand. We didn't have anybody there from KUAW radio that I know of. I haven't heard yet that we have a report coming from the field right now. But if you know of anyone or if you were there, we would like to find out. We'd like to hear about it and see what you saw or what's going on as we move forward. Let's see, we were definitely live a minute ago on our page. I think we may be live now too on, see, is that KUAW? Yeah, that's still us. I don't know if we're live on KUAW right now, or are we? We seem to have had a problem there. Oh, okay. Mildred says she's watching, so I hope that she is picking this up. But as I say, we've had definitely some problems. All right, so Mildred, we're glad that you're in. Hope that you're still watching this and enjoying it. But we wanted to let you know, too, as we talk about the problems that we have, not only do we have to deal with the violence and the police brutality things that are going on, but I had an article here that I wanted to see that's also talking about the number of the coronavirus deaths and people that are contracting it that are in the African American community, and how it's affecting our community more than others. And that is something, as we talk about the inequality and the problems that go on in our community, a lot of it is due to systematic, what's been going on for years in our community, of neglect, of people not being given the opportunities to get the same health care as others, and of having more underlying diseases or underlying conditions than others. And that's a thing, because this was in the New York Times, I believe I got this from, posted 2 days ago. But it says, or this may have been the Australian news that I was even in. So there's an old saying that sums up the disparities in the U.S. with the health metaphor, and it's been going around long. When America catches a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. And right now, white America is just catching a cold, is getting ravaged by coronavirus on nearly every front. The virus has claimed the lives of 103,000 Americans, registered 1.7 million positive cases, and cost the country 40 million jobs. That's what's going on with the thing right now. By each measure of hardship, though, Black Americans are bearing more of the burden, but getting less attention. Think about it. Most staggering is the mortality rate, which is roughly 2.4 times higher than it is for white Americans. So if you're an African American, you've got twice 2.5 times more probability of dying from it, from the coronavirus than whites. You'd think that a virus that's dubbed the great equalizer might help some Americans see the morbid risk of sustained racial inequality. But the national conversation around the discrepancy of death rates tends to stop at saying that Black Americans are more likely to have pre-existing health conditions such as obesity, in effect putting the blame for catching the virus back on Black Americans. Yeah, that's the reason we're dying more. Even the advice of the U.S. Surgeon General, a Black American, focused on telling Black Americans to avoid alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. Yeah, good health is something that Black Americans, 22% of whom live in poverty, disproportionately have less means to achieve. So, the inequality that goes on just keeps mounting, and it shows itself in a lot of different ways. The fact that you have less jobs, more unemployment, substandard food or more fast food outlets in your area, all of that can lead to those underlying conditions that now the coronavirus comes on and they say, well, it's because you eat bad, because you're not eating healthy and you don't go to the Whole Food store and all of that. Well, a lot of times you can't. You're in a different position. Those disparities we have to look at, and those disparities are killing us right now. They're killing us at twice the rate that they're killing white Americans. So we have to think about that. We have to look at that. We have to see, okay, what can we do about it? Same thing goes with the effects of education. Education has always been less in the African American community. We've had poor education, and now with the coronavirus and people having to stay home, it's going to make that gap even more. Because yes, you can learn, but a lot of times in those homes that are in the urban core and in the rural parts of America, you don't have that high-speed internet access. You may not have a computer, but now all your lessons are online. Yes, the school gave you a laptop to take home, but you don't have a hotspot. So now you got to get a hotspot, and that may have took you a week or two, and you still got to play catch-up with it. Now we have parents that still have to work because there's more African Americans and Mexicans and other minorities, Hispanics, I should say, that have to work. They're essential workers, whether they're cleaning up, whether they're janitors or whatever that they are doing, but they're essential workers, so they're not staying home helping their kids with the class work. We see here conditions where environmental problems are prevention in the areas where basics are poor, leave cutting funds for EPA, policy on those who are polluting. Yes, as we stop the regulations, as we get rid of regulations, it makes it even more, it's more pronounced in the poorer communities. So we have to look at all of that. We have to look at the fact that some of our youngsters, we had a young person that was on the show just a week or so ago, about 2 weeks ago, and that was saying, well, she was home, her parents were at work, and she had to look after her younger sister and do her work. So get her dressed, get her ready for breakfast, make sure she's getting her work lined out, and she's on the computer and she can do everything. Then she's got to do her work too. So it'd be good if you say, well, yeah, mom or dad, somebody's working from home today, and they're trying to play educator, and they're saying, oh, we see how much the teachers go through, and they're crying about how bad it is that they've got to take care of the kids. Well, think about how bad it is if the kids have to take care of themselves, if they have to see about their education themselves. That's the reality. That's what goes on. Not at every household. Yes, there are some African-American homeschoolers, some that parents are there working with them, work from home. We don't want to say that it's a monolith and everybody is going through the same thing. But we have a higher percentage, I should say, in our community. We have a higher number of people that are being disproportionately burdened from this coronavirus. And it doesn't get the attention. As it was saying in that article, you don't hear about that as much in our community. All right. So it's 5:45, so we're getting down to the end of our hour. We do appreciate I did get a chance to rant and rave. Sorry if you didn't get to catch all of this. I see that some of the video is playing now, but it's behind. It's showing back when we started. So it's been a great time. I hope that you got something out of it. I still hope that you will think about what's going on in the community, what's going on with the violence towards African Americans, not just men, but women too. There's been high-profile African American men killed, but that also pertains to women in our community. So everybody stay vigilant. Everybody care about your neighbors and pray. Stay prayed up. And also, we have to take action. We have to take action, but we have to see about taking the action in a sustained and direct way, a way that we can really get something accomplished, because the community, the world is used to having a few protests and riots that go on for a week or two, and then it dies down and we go back to business as usual. So we don't want that to happen now. We need to see about forming up and working for sustained change to come in this country and in the way that African Americans are treated. That's all I have for today. I thank you for joining us. We're on every Monday from 5 to 5:45. This is the BFTAA and More Show. This is your host, Louis George Walker. Glad you took the time to join me today, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you next week. Stay tuned for Shifting Paradigms, which should be coming on in just a few minutes. All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.